Hey guys! Well, it's been a while, feels like ages. Not that I haven't been doing anything, I've been doing a lot of research and going through a lot of drama, but starting to sort of like get back onto a level playing field again. And looking at this, I went to the Crystal Palace a couple of weeks ago. I did my concrete church video afterwards, and the last time I went to the Crystal Palace area was about 18 years ago, and I can remember going there to see the Crystal Palace and being really shocked to find that not only was it not there, but that it burned down. And I remember thinking then, I thought, wasn't it like a big glass house? And then just forgot about it. But of course, this time around, with my new historical lies eyes, I saw it all very, very differently. So one of the biggest surprises that I had was that the Crystal Palace in Sydenham, where I went, was originally the Great Exhibition. Now, the Great Exhibition of 1851 was set up in Hyde Park. Now, this guy, David Haan, he's got two videos up on YouTube, the story of the Great Exhibition part 1 and 2, and they're both really, really, really worth watching. He really goes into this subject, really covers it in depth, and obviously is a huge expert on the official narrative, which to me is full of holes. So the Great Exhibition, it was brainchild of Prince Albert, consort of Queen Victoria, and he decided that they needed to have an international exhibition. They'd had a few national exhibitions. This was one that they had in 1849 or something, 17 something or other. It all looks a bit crapped up, doesn't it? But they had one there, and then Prince Albert decided he wanted to have an exhibition, and they built the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park, and here it is in location. It was absolutely enormous. It didn't have royal funding, so they had to do private donations, have parties, whip rounds with the rich, and it's just enormous. So they had a competition. They actually often have competitions to design these things, so a lot of them were just laughed out. Lots of competitions. That one, they didn't like that one. They didn't like that one. They didn't like that one. So this is one that was built at Chatsworth. This is one of the first glass houses that were built, heated with underground coal, and just absolutely stupendous. And the guy who built this submitted the winning design for the Crystal Palace and was put in charge of it. So there's all the spec for the steel, and any photography is limited to a couple of early pictures from this second site. There's nothing from the original Hyde Park site. Here's some of the builders. Here it is. Just massive. Now here's a list of all the things, foundation pieces. Now all of the work was carried out by Midlands factories, steel factories in the Midlands and glass factories in the Midlands, and they were on site by the end of July 1850, and the whole thing was up and running a year later. Yeah? they had to incorporate quite a few of the trees in there. They're big elm trees, I think, and there was a bit of a furore about them cutting them down. So, gosh, what's going on outside? So there was something going on there with the trees. They took all the trees down. Here it is. And this is the number of men. He was saying how the number of men increased proportionately. So we had 2,000 men working on the site by the November. And these numbers sort of went up and down as they dropped dead, presumably. And I want you to look at what a static crowd looks like. This is great. So there's 2,000 people there. So that's how many people would have been working on the site, yeah? All that lot. Let's get back to him. That's it, that one I'm doing, this one, this one. I've got it up in a couple of places. I can take that one down actually. And here we go. Putting up the steel. I don't know how they were putting it up. It seems to be like bits of rope and pulleys and they said that not many people got killed. They did it all right. There's a couple of men up here, big long ladders. There's a bit of a wobbly ladder. Some guy on a ladder here doing, I don't know what he's doing. Here they are putting the glass in. Glazing it. Clearing it up. Putting the finishing touches. And there we go. Right, so when they painted it, they decided it took a long time to paint it. He was specific about what colours it should be. He wanted red, yellow and blue, and they all had to be separated with white. It took ages. Can you imagine how long it must have taken to set this thing up? And then they invited all these people from all over the world. Hundreds of people came, millions of people came actually, millions. They had to be put up in strange places because there were so many arrived. It was so packed in there that they couldn't move around. People couldn't see anything. There were only 7 toilets. The heating was all over the place because people were overheating or underheating. And it was all over in 8 months, 6 months. It was only up for a little while. These are all the money they apparently made from food and if you think of the logistics of this, right? If you just think of the logistics of it, they didn't even come up with the concept to have this thing until like 1849, and then it was up and running with everything sorted out, and also all of the materials used were all tried and tested. Now I'm going to go to the glass firm here that glazed it. One of the greatest achievements of Chance Brothers. So it's Chance Brothers in Smethwick. And here it is. Here's the Crystal Palace. I don't think they're going to let me bring it up. Yeah, there it is. This is the original one. I don't know what they are. Oh, they're the fountains. Oh yeah, there was the fountains as well, of course. Yeah. So they supplied the glass. The firm had already supplied the glass for Paxton's famous glass house at Chatsworth. That was the other one. And so they went over to France and they got the leading French glass blower, Stenger, and bought another 30 glass blowers and flatteners. The first 8 of those engaged arrived at Spon Lane in Stenger's charge, blah blah blah, sent to work immediately. All the furnaces worked at extra pressure. The Spon Lane works hummed with activity because the company still maintained their ordinary output. In a few weeks, more than 1 million square feet of glass in panes measuring 49 by 10 inches were produced. In January 1851, 63,000 panes of glass were turned out in just one fortnight. This was indeed a fantastic feat, as glass had to be blown into a cylinder, split, flattened, annealed, skimmed, ground, polished and cut to size. Well, what do you know? So here we are inside, hand colour print. So after the 1851 exhibition, it was taken down and rebuilt at Sydenham in South London, which is where I was. That's the Crystal Palace that I always thought was Crystal Palace. I didn't realise it was at Hyde Park first for 9 months and then packed up and moved down the road. And this guy, where am I? Is right into that. He researched that as well. He said, you know, Pickford's vans, packed it all up and took it through the streets of London, and it was all quite sort of like no problems. It just all went down there, all got moved down there and rebuilt in the space of 2 years. And not only was it rebuilt, let me show you. Crystal Palace. I really should get to some newspaper reports about all of this, you know. Let's have a quick look at Wiki's spiel on it, because cast iron and plate glass structure originally built in Hyde Park to house the Great Exhibition of 1851. The exhibition took place from the 1st of May till the 15th of October, and more than 14,000 exhibitors from around the world gathered in its 990,000 square feet exhibition. It was 3 times the size of St. Paul's Cathedral. So afterwards, it was relocated to an area of South London known as Pen Common. It was rebuilt at the top of Pen Peak next to Sydenham Hill. It stood there from June 1854. So it was up till 1851 in Hyde Park. Then the whole thing was dismantled, moved to Sydenham through the streets of London. Yeah? Built up again and was open by June 1854. Until it was destroyed by fire in November 1936. And it wasn't just built there, wasn't just erected. You should see what was there as well. This lady's got a blog. It's a huge building, primarily built using cast iron frame, blah 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 blah, built larger than before. It was bigger than before. Bigger than, I mean, look at the set, and they landscaped all the grounds as well. I'm just trying to find a bit where it talks about here, the rebuilding at Sydenham. This is a good site. Now this is the Crystal Palace Foundation. Here it is. It was the Hyde Park Crystal Palace building was purchased by the Crystal Palace Company for £70,000. During the time of high unemployment, the project provided jobs for over 7,000 workmen. High unemployment? But weren't they building London? I know the cemeteries were being built then. I'm using the word built in the Victorian context, you know. Reusing, finding and doing it all again. So they had a serious accident not long after starting, when a whole load of people died. So they hired dozens of experts, people made plaster casts of the best statuary. They had a whole series of historical fine art courts. Each court illustrated a particular period in the history of art, very much like the Great Exhibition, which is what they did there. Egyptian, Alhambra, Roman, Renaissance, Chinese, Pompeii and Grecian. Edward Milner designed the grounds, constructing the Italian garden and fountains, opening 2 years late. Oh, it took him a couple of years to do them. 12,000 jets, water temples and cascades and 3 lakes, the Great Maze and the English landscape garden. They were far too costly to run the fountains and were only used on special occasions, requiring over 7 million gallons of water for one display. 2 largest were grassed over in 1894, because they made like a huge football stadium there now. Oh dear. So what do I think? What do you think? Do you think they did it? Do you think they built that in 2 years with all the landscape gardens? Or was this here before? And was the Hyde Park one there before? Or was it there at all? Was it there at all? Anyway, I want to show you a history of glass houses, because they have only been around since the early 1800s, and this one here is supposed to be one of the first ones, but I want you to have a look at it. This is supposed to be like a good example of Mughal architecture. It's Sydenham house in Gloucestershire, and they did it, you know, the British Empire was in full buzz, so they did it in a sort of like Indian style. But when you look at it, they haven't done very much. They put a dome on, sorry, I hope my voice wasn't slowing down too much. So yeah, so they've put a dome on, which I strongly suspect they nicked from India. I think they probably nicked that. Yeah. Beautiful thing with some gorgeous technasma on it. And they've also got like little domes here, which I think they probably nicked them as well. All the original architectures here from the building. This is not built in 1820. They blocked these up. It's oldie worldy stuff, and it's under. And let's show you the orangery. The orangery is awesome. This is one of the original glass. It's alright. It does this. Yeah, this is one of the original glass houses. Taking forever. There's some very cool skies, you got to admit. So yeah, this was allegedly built in 1820. It fully loads, I can go in. Not built in 1820. Look at all this. This is another example of the Victorians taking credit for older work. And another place that had all sorts of stuff going on for it was Kew. So it seems to me, the Palm House, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. Right. Close these. Glaze in the Crystal Palace. Close that, yeah. Now this one here, we've got a photograph. raising the first pillar. So this is 1852. I don't know how that happened. Here it is, the first pillar. The first support of the Crystal Palace, a building of purely English architecture, designed to the recreation and instruction of the million, was erected on the 5th day of August 1852, in the 16th year of the reign of Her Majesty Queen Victoria. Okay, so the things that were done earlier, they wouldn't have been Victorian. They would have predated her. And destined to the recreation and instruction of the million. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to come back to it because there's other things here that are really, really interesting. But at the moment I'm questioning the timeline and I'm questioning the logistics of this. I'm just going to go back to this because I want to show you this again. So during a time of high unemployment, it gave jobs for 7,000 workmen. So I'm going to go back to my crowd density. There's our 2,000. He only goes up as many as 3,000. So double that is how many people were working on the Crystal Palace in Sydenham. Yeah, I think everything was coming from the west. I think it was there. I think it was patched up. I think these were huge, great big growing areas for food. I think they were like magnificent hothouses, genuinely. The one that held the Great Exhibition was, I want to show you this. I want to just show you this. I strongly recommend these videos. This is the second part of it, and this one, it shows you the exhibits and walking through it. And bear in mind all the time the logistics that we were talking about as he's walking through this place. There were crystal fountains. All of this was all fitted out in about 6 months. Yeah. Six months. And then they dismantled it all and moved it to Kent, Sydenham. All the old technosma and everything here. Dispersed of the collection. There were musical instruments. So look at the fireplaces. So this is well worth a watch, this video. Look, this is supposed to be a lighthouse. Get out. A lighthouse optic that was built by the same people who built the who made all the glass. Yeah. There it is. View of the model of the docks. It just gets crazier. That's Liverpool. Just gets crazier and crazier. This is the food they ate. What's that? Look at this. Look at the size of these candlesticks. That's Godefroy de Bouillon. These are statues. they had all the old stuff in there. All the old stuff from all the old places, from all the old worldy places from before the event. Look at it. It's just beyond fascinating, and all of it built by hand by who knows who. He said they were a sullen and morose workforce. Yeah, I bet they were, after being bought from the prison ships and the prisons. I doubt if they were cheerful. Some of it's still around, this stuff. I'm going to leave the links to all of this. Anyway, in finishing, I want to show you my video of the Crystal Palace. Now, I do go on a bit of a strange rant in the middle, but I was wet. It's not very long, and I'll probably put it up separately from this, or I may add it on. It depends how long this is. But just look at the architecture in the station, and look at the architecture of the old town hall. It's all in this area. And walking through Crystal Palace, some of the houses are a good 10 to 15 feet underground. I'm going to go back there. I'm going to go back there and have a mooch around the grounds and see what I can find. But I'm going to leave it there for now. Tell me what you think. Do you think it's possible that they built this place in 9 months, had it up and running for 6 months, and then in the space of a year they had it moved to Sydenham, landscaped all the gardens with fountains, Italianate gardens, statuary, etc, 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 built a railway as well, and because there were so many millions of people going to this one, it was like it just doesn't make any sense, man. None whatsoever. Logistically, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. Anyway, thanks for watching, and just tell me what you think.